Guys, what's up? We have with us the legend himself, Mr. Steve Kaufmann. He is back. Well, I shouldn't say back because we did a podcast with him, but we didn't have Go Learn Me Languages yet. So Steve is back. If you guys aren't aware of Steve, he speaks 1 billion languages. He's broken. No, I'm just kidding. He does speak a lot of languages though. So, and you guys are going to find that out. You're going to find out who he is, how he's done it, and he's got a very interesting story. And we're also, of course, gonna use some of the language that we have in common just to kind of communicate. And we thought it'd be fun. So, Steve, welcome. And how's it going?
Hey, nice to see you again or to chat again. Things are going fine. I'm actually, although I live most of the year in Vancouver, British Columbia, I'm right now in Palm Springs because it rains in Vancouver in the winter. So my wife and I come down here and to see the sun, and I continue learning languages. And right now I'm learning Persian and Arabic. But along the way, I've learned a bunch of languages, and of course, I have a YouTube channel as well, Lingo Steve, and together with my son about 15 years ago, we started a platform called LingQ, LINGQ. And so LingQ and languages has become sort of my third career because I was a diplomat for 7 years. And then I was an executive in the forest industry, started my own company in wood products, which still runs. I'm not active there. And my third and most satisfying career has been my language career, which began about 16 years ago at the age of 60.
So yes, it's an incredible story to be honest, and one would probably assume that you did have some, and I think we spoke about this before. You did have some touch, you did have some exposure to language learning as a diplomat and going on. But if you could maybe just give a refresher on.
I will give you a refresher about the circumstances that favored me when it came to language learning. But before I do that, I just want to say one thing. I was in Montreal at a language conference, and there was a room of 500-600 people, mostly from the U.S., some from Canada, some from elsewhere. And I said, "How many people here grew up in a family where where the family was multilingual or spoke more than one language?" Hardly anyone put up their hand. So the fact that you're in North America in a unilingual environment, you grow up unilingual, is not an obstacle to learning languages. However, I had some advantages. I was born in Sweden, and at the age of 5, my family moved to Canada in 1951. I promptly forgot my Swedish, although it's probably back there somewhere or was. Then had the need to bring it back to life. And of course, growing up in Montreal, even though Montreal in the 50s was very much what they call two solitudes, an English speaking city and a French speaking city, nevertheless, French was there. So those are conditions that, were in my favor. If you hear more languages as a child, I believe it makes your brain more flexible, but it doesn't prevent people who grew up in a unilingual or monolingual environment from learning languages. And the other thing about it is, then of course I joined the Canadian Diplomatic Service. I was sent to Hong Kong to learn Chinese, and that was my job. So I spent 7-8 hours a day learning Chinese for a year, and then we lived in Japan. Once you realize that you can learn one or two languages, it's of course very satisfying to be able to do something that's quite useful, something that's perhaps a little difficult, but not too difficult for you. You realize you can do it. Wow, look at me. The brain is fired up. You're motivated to do more of it. So all of those things were favorable conditions. But particularly since the age of 60, when I decided to tackle, Russian, Korean, Romanian, Arabic, Persian, certainly age has not held me back either.
Yeah, that's also incredible too. I mean, there's this whole understanding that, of course, your cognitive ability is going to decline. You can't learn it. I mean, everybody who's ever tried, if you've ever looked for the excuses, possibly you were going to find them. That if you're an adult, or if you're over the age of 20, it's too late. So the method for learning a language is probably one of the most important things and one of the most important aspects to keeping people motivated, to making sure that you get the right exposure to the words and stuff like that. So maybe for the people who don't know how you've done it, you can kind of explain what you guys have created there at Link, and what they can find and how they can kind of go about learning the language.
Sure. So for most of my life, when I was learning languages, without knowing it, I was practicing sort of comprehensible input. My house is full of books, secondhand readers for German, for Italian, for whatever. But then with my son, we set up this platform called Link, which, by the way, we recently overhauled, we've rewritten it as Link 5.0. And the objective is to take advantage of all the resources that are available on the internet, text material, ebooks, podcasts, Netflix, YouTube, all of these different things, bring them to a platform where you can basically engage with them, uh, saving words and phrases, go sentence by sentence, hear the audio for that sentence, and build in some motivation so that if you're active listening on your iPod while exercising, or you're going through some vocabulary and you're reviewing whatever you're doing, you're getting credit in sort of this point system that we have, that you coins we call them. You can't take it to the bank, because very often this sort of external motivation, like I always liken it to the old dog races where the dog chases the mechanical rabbit. If you can have something there that keeps you going, because there is what I call the doldrums, the plateau. You called it the dip, where we need some kind of incentive to keep us going, because there is a lot of frustration. You listened again, you still didn't understand. You're with some people you couldn't understand. You tried to say something, it didn't come out right, and so we build in a lot of motivation. But you can bring anything into our system from the internet, and access it and engage with it. And it tells you how many new words there are in content. I can't go through the whole details of the thing, but it's just, I mean, it's a peloton of language learning. It just keeps you going, enjoying it, and lo and behold, if you do your HIIT workout every day or every second day, you're going to get fitter. If you do Link every day, you're going to learn languages.
Right.
So
Right.
that's kind of what it is.
Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, obviously, guys, we'll have links down below, or if you're just listening to this, I'm not sure if we've got the podcast up yet. Though it'll be in the show notes. But yeah, so I mean, like you said, and you mentioned this comprehensible input, and probably the people here are going to get maybe annoyed or bored of the fact that it gets mentioned a whole lot. But you guys are seeing that we're bringing, some of these guys, these very very successful language learners, and they're all coming back and saying the same thing. So rather
Yes.
than, I don't want to say waste your time, and because obviously I think it's important that people find the method that works for them. I mean, I'm not the biggest guy on flashcards to learn new
Nor
vocab.
am I. Nor am I.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
Nor am I.
some people really, really love Anki and memorize. They
Absolutely.
love it. And if it works for you, it works for you. It just doesn't seem to be, not that it doesn't work for me. It just doesn't seem to be my thing. And so, I definitely want to stress people to find their thing, as long as it's coming from someone that's successful.
Well, to me, the thing with flashcards or any of this stuff is it's more exposure to the language. It's engaging with the language. So, however you like to engage with the language, if it motivates you, if it gets you to spend the time, if you spend the time with the language and you have a positive attitude towards the language, however you spend that time with the language, you're going to learn.
Yeah, yeah, and we spoke about this on the other video, but that consistency level there is what is going to do it. So
Absolutely.
if you're not doing
Yeah.
something that you enjoy, you won't do it every day. I mean, we
Exactly.
know this. It's so much more fun when you wake up excited to get to that next level and that next thing. Um, so you're doing Persian and Arabic now, and before we transition into talking about all the other, I have never gone down any of those that route. How's that going? Just as an update for those.
Okay. Well, first of all, you have to be realistic. So I've been at it for 3 years. All right.
Okay.
And I'm nowhere. Nowhere, but
Okay.
enjoying it. All
All right.
right. I mean, when I say nowhere, if I bring in a podcast, a political podcast from this Persian website, there's only 10% unknown words there for me. So it's not like I'm nowhere. And I speak to my tutor, and we converse. But I'm certainly not at the European sort of framework B2 level. So
Yeah.
people have to recognize that it takes time. Now, when I was learning Chinese as a Canadian diplomat, I was getting paid every month. That was my job. I was putting in 7 hours a day. If you put in that kind of effort, you can learn fast. But if you're putting in an hour a day, a lot of it is listening. And my wife likes to play golf, so I got to go play golf with
Right.
her. Life is tough. So
Yeah.
you got to be realistic. But it's fascinating. I have a collaborator in Iran who loads up episodes on Iranian history, Iranian food, Iranian cinema directors. So I'm getting into sort of the Iranian world. Similarly, on Arabic, I'm actually dabbling in Standard Arabic, Egyptian Arabic, and Levantine Arabic. And so you find things like there's this Jordanian cartoon series, kind of like the Flintstones type of thing. you just get into their culture in many different ways, and it's so I'm loving it. But I wouldn't want to be in a contest for Arabic speakers or Persian speakers.
Okay. Then last question, just on that, because those two languages, they do share some similarities, though. Correct? They do
Oh
have a
yes.
little bit of quite a bit. Are you finding, and this is important for people that want to study maybe more than one language at once? Are you finding that to be tough? Because that's obviously, with the mother tongue of English, or technically kind of Swedish in some weird way. Those are distant. I mean, they're just not related to. Are you finding crossover? Do you find issues?
All right, so you have to understand that. And I also, by the way, started Turkish at the same time. So initially I said I'm going to learn three Middle Eastern languages because it's so difficult to read in a writing system that is not your own. So we grow up reading in the Latin alphabet. So once you get into the Arabic alphabet, which Persian also uses, it's just so difficult not to recognize what the symbols mean. That's also a problem, but you start to know what they mean. But for the brain to get used to reading in that script takes a lot of effort. So I decided to discontinue Turkish and focus on those two languages that use the Arabic script. All three languages share about 15% common vocabulary. So, and where you see those, of course, it's a help. There are some quote false friends, but I've never considered that to be a problem. It just helps you remember them. If I had, if I really wanted to learn, let's say Egyptian Arabic fast, I would focus on just Egyptian Arabic. But because I'm kind of a bit like Moses that we spoke about, Moses McCormick. I'm enjoying exploring these languages. So dabble in a bit of Egyptian, a bit of Lebanese or whatever, television sources. So I'm in no great hurry, but it's not ideal. I think there is efficiency in focusing. If you need to learn a language or want to learn a language, one language fast, you're better off to focus on it. It's useful to have variety, then vary the kind of content you're using, vary the activities that you engage in to give the brain a bit of a refresher, but stay with the language if you want to learn that language as soon as you can.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, obviously, and it matters. And just to note and to cap it off there, you guys, your goals for your language learning are your goals. You have no need to try and do. If you just want to stick, I talked to Matt versus Japan, who I'm sure you probably know as well, or who at least knows you, and he loves Japanese. And I said, Matt, do you have any idea what you're going to do next? No, not really, because I love Japanese and I just want to study Japanese. And he understands language learning. I think he's gifted at language learning, and I know that he would pick up another language quicker than the average person, and he still doesn't care about that. And I think that's the attitude that everybody should probably take to it: is what motivates you, and then that's it. Yeah, if you're after writing excellent in the language, go for that. If you just want to dabble and do that, do it. But really do it and stick to it, and decide probably beforehand what your idea is and what your goal is. Um, so, okay, quickly before we go. Så du sa att du kan fortfarande prata lite svenska.
Jo.
Kan vi göra det? Okej.
Ja, ja.
Eh,
Ja, jag är född i Sverige, men sen flyttade vi till Kanada.